Welcome to another edition of A Voice to the Gentile Church. I'm Jim Wingerter. Next to me is Pastor Roger Diaz. Dolores is on assignment. So Bibi got subpoenaed to the White House.
The word that was used is he got called up to the White House or summoned to the White House. I'm not sure what it's about. I was hoping that information would have leaked out or would have been presented, but probably something to do with Iran, because Iran is beginning to bristle again and to flex some muscles once again, and so it might be something to do with Iran and its connection to Hezbollah in Lebanon, because that in the last few days have become another issue.
Right. Another flare-up with Syria.
Hezbollah is still positioning itself to attack Israel in the north. Syria is an issue or concern. It's not much of a immediate concern. Lebanon is, and so it might have to do with a joint effort to subdue Hezbollah in the north, because Trump does not want a breakout of hostilities, because then his peace plan would have failed. Right. Which we all know that it has already failed.
Every other president's peace plan has failed.
So Trump is a complex personality. His need to present himself before the world as a highly effective president supersedes his wisdom from time to time.
Yes.
And so it's almost as if he thinks that people can't see right through his motivation, which is sad. But we can. So he needs to just deal with the fact that his peace plan didn't work. Not put any pressure on Israel about the Abrahamic Accords or any of that, because Israel is so far removed from coming to a place of any quote-unquote peace with their neighbors.
Right.
I mean, again, I like Trump in terms of some of the things that he does. I'll vote for him again if he's what we have. But there's a shallowness there that's concerning. Again, my great concern with Trump is that him and his administration behave as if no one can discern their folly.
Right.
Why do you even present such a pretense? Just come out and deal with the reality of how things are. You know, the American people will much more appreciate you if you deal forthrightly and honestly about things, and then try and create a rosy picture that doesn't exist.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing with Venezuela and me as well. I'm all about him, ridding Venezuela of Maduro, freeing the Venezuelan people, giving them the power to build their economy back and so on. I'm all about that. But be honest about it. You can come out and say we have a dual purpose in what we're doing here.
Right.
Which is, one, to stop the narco-terrorism, to stop the flow of drugs into the country and into Europe and many, many places. One. And two, to liberate Venezuela and to give them the power to once again restart their oil industry. And it's about the oil. Come out and say it.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
Big oil. Yeah.
But so that's churning down there, and it's real close to break out at this point in the Southern Caribbean, which is going to be really, really interesting to see, because you're dealing with islands in the north of Venezuela that has never seen any hostilities, any war. Places like Curacao, Aruba, Borneo, Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Grenada, all those islands are going to be severely impacted by whatever comes. So it's interesting. In the meantime, Iran is posturing itself again as if it's going to seek nuclear weapons, and we know that Israel is not going to just roll over on that, and they will reach out and touch Iran again.
Yeah.
So have you been looking at that? Have you been looking at the situation?
Yeah, when it comes up, yeah.
I'm not sure if you know anything that I don't know about it.
We
don't have Dolores, so we gotta come up with something.
I probably don't, because if the morning news didn't talk about it, it didn't get presented.
Okay. Well, Well, I don't know much about what's happening in Israel. You know, after 2.5 years or so of just mega Israel focus, things slow down just a bit, and all eyes are off of Israel, right? So,
Right.
but it won't take
Right.
much to make it all about Israel again. From what I understand, the Mossad went into Nablus, Shechem, and extracted a very high-ranked terrorist who was planning an attack on a nearby community, which could have been, it could have been Habaracha, it could have been Kedumim, it could have been even Ariel, Konesh Amron, Elon Morey. We don't know,
Right.
but
Right.
this terrorist, he was a leader of a group of terrorists, and they had a lot of ordinances, heavy ordinances, explosives, and they were preparing to launch an attack in a community, not a military site or a military
Right.
base, but in a community. So that's good. The Mossad went in there and took him out. There's a lot of video on the internet of they actually extracting this guy. Now, you know what Nablus is like. It's
Yeah,
a
it's a
cesspool of seed and,
Yeah.
hatred and Islamic terror. So they actually went in there. A squadron of them or something went in there and pulled this guy out, which is amazing.
Yes.
So Israel is taking steps that she's never taken before. I think after October 7th, Israel has earned a dimension of boldness in dealing with their domestic issues, their terrorists, their in-house terrorists. And they're doing a good job with that so far. But, with every one terrorist that gets nabbed and gets taken off the streets, there's at least a dozen more that will rise up and do so revengefully. So there's
Right.
always there's a conveyor belt of terrorists, leading terrorists that will come up and attempt to do the evil deed over and over. So Israel has a real problem on its hands. Places like Jenin, Ramallah, Nablus, Hebron, they just breed this Islamic hatred.
Right.
Don't know what the solution is.
No, well, the world always keeps reviving this two-state solution thing. And
Yeah.
October 7th just drew a line in the sand with the Israelis. They looked at that and said there is no two-state solution that'll never happen.
It's a nutty thing. So when you consider the reality of Jenin, Nablus, Ramallah and Hebron and the other communities that are just overflowing with Islamic evangelism, when you look at that, and then you consider the idea of a two-state solution, how's that going to fix anything?
Right.
Really?
Right.
You draw a line, you put a barrier, you build a wall, and you call it Palestine. But what's that going to do? It's going to empower these communities. What it will actually do is create more of a connection between these communities. And you think they will connect for any good? No, they will join forces.
Right.
So Israel is in a predicament, and I almost hate to say it, but I'll come out and say what many people refuse to say. The only solution for Israel is repatriation.
Yeah.
That's a horrible thing to even consider, but it really isn't, because most of these people, now there's always been Arabs in the land of Israel. Bedouins are sprinkling here in Bethlehem, are sprinkling there in Nazareth, here and there. Little small communities, almost like little Arab, they're not really Arab really, but little hamlets of communities that were not Jewish. But what's happened in Nablus, Ramallah, Jenin, and Hebron, the majority of those people are not historically Israeli.
Right.
They're Jordanian, they're from other parts of the Islamic world, and they're there to be an obstruction to Israel.
Yeah.
You know the history, but maybe our listeners don't know the history.
Right.
Literally, they were placed there, moved in there, to be an impediment to Israel. So wherever they came from is where they need to return to.
Right.
And so I say that, and we're small guys. I mean, nobody really pays attention to what we say, but in my humble opinion, it is the only solution.
Right.
There isn't another solution.
So biblically, the stranger in the land can live there,
For sure.
but be submissive to the Israeli government.
So the King James word sojourner is a principle. It's a biblical principle that the sojourner can join himself to Israel.
Right.
Always been that way. Think of as Christians, we ought to remember, we ought to keep in mind that many of the progenitors of Yeshua were sojourners.
Right.
Started with Rahab, right?
Right.
She was a Canaanite.
Right. Yes.
And the story goes on from Rahab to the woman that lived in the wall of Jericho. What was her name? We'll skip her. We'll come back to her.
I thought that was Rahab.
Okay, Rahab. Oh, Tamar. I'm sorry. Yes. Started with Tamar, who was she was a progenitor of Yeshua. As a Christian, we always know that. And then you have Tamar, you have Rahab, and then you have Ruth, and there might even be one more in there. They were all non-Israelis.
Right.
I mean, Rahab was Canaanite, Tamar was Canaanite, Ruth was Canaanite. Well, she was actually Moabite.
Yeah.
So there's always a place for the sojourner, and the story of Yeshua elevates the place of the sojourner. Right? It puts the sojourner on a high platform. But if you look at the lives of those three women, you see women who were willing to adapt,
right,
and surrender to the Israeli way. The perfect example, the most stunning example, of course, is Ruth. Rahab, she saw no choice. She made a wise decision, right?
Right. Saved her family and herself.
Burned to death in this city with these Canaanites, or run off with the Israelites, and so she decided to run off with the Israelites. Good choice.
Yeah.
But in the case with Ruth, it's different. She made a conscientious decision to become an Israelite.
Right.
And I think that's the basis of the whole concept of the sojourner. Someone who recognizes hope in Israel and determines and acts upon joining the tribes of Israel. And that's the story of Ruth. We know that very well. So we don't do very well with current events, do we? we miss Dolores.
Stays on top of that all the time.
So what else is happening in the world that's notable? I know that the world's losing its mind. College campuses on our streets here in the States and Europe, seemingly in every place in the Western Hemisphere, in Western world, first world countries, you have this uprising of Islamic fervents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel, anything that points to Israel in any way at all. Suddenly, that's the focus of any uprising anywhere in the world, almost. In France, in England, in Germany, here in the States, you know. This is incredible, and it's ominous, right?
Yes.
That we can be in such a place after 75, 80 years of never again.
Right.
Here we are, and we're seeing a groundswell of hatred and anti-Israelism, and such a thrust against Israel. So I can't say that I'm surprised. I'm just a little taken back by its strength and by its momentum. So maybe we
have a question. Let's go.
We just
jump right there. It's a good question. Since October 7th, the October 7th war with Israel and Hamas, many Israelis have left Israel for safety elsewhere. How does this affect the process of the prophetic ingathering of Israel?
All right, so this is my question. I had a discussion with someone last week, an Israeli, who is hands-on involved with tourism and Aliyah and all those other factors. He's a rabbi, and he's a pretty accomplished Israeli in that sense. And he told me almost 125,000 Jews, Jewish Israelis have left since 2000.
That's a substantial number. Yeah,
October 7th, and that's incredible, right? That's shocking. So I asked about Aliyah, and he said roughly 55,000 since October 7th has made Aliyah. So when you consider those two facts, on the surface, it seems horrible, right? You mean 125,000 left, 55,000 came in? The math doesn't work out very well. But you have to look at this carefully, all right? First of all, the 55,000 that came since October 7th, most of them came in based on a faith directive.
Right.
Aliyah based on faith. And that's powerful. The ones who left, they left on the basis of no faith.
Right.
Right. Now, the truth is, over 60% of those who left, maybe 70%, will come back. And that is the history. This is not the first rodeo for Israel, right?
No.
So they've been dealing with, in the modern state of Israel, how many conflicts have they dealt with that has forced Israeli Jews to leave? How many? You had the 1948 war, right? I'm sure a few of them picked up and left. You had the 67 war. Again, I'm positive that many left. You had the Yom Kippur War of attrition. You had the Lebanese war. You had the intifadas. You had 3 or 4 intifadas. I'm convinced that many left at that time as well. But the history is that many of them returned. They spent a few years out, and then they realized that, hey, there's no place like Israel for us. They missed the shawarma and the falafel and all of the good Israeli food, and they go back. So the ones who are leaving, they're leaving because of fear.
Right.
They're intimidated by what's happening around them, and they take off. But the few that comes that makes Aliyah, that come in by faith, well, in terms of the overall faith of the nation, they vastly outweigh those who leave, even though those who leave are, in this case, is larger in terms of numbers.
Right.
So you get my point, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I presented that well. So you had 55,000 that came in. Most of them came in based on a faith initiative. You had 125,000 that left on a fear initiative. So I much prefer the 55,000.
Sure.
I give that number much more credit.
That number's miraculous.
Yeah.
Who comes in a time of war?
Exactly. So things are coming apart in Israel, or so it seems, and you got 55,000 Jews who are saying, regardless of what it looks like, I am going. Now, of the 55,000, some of them came because they were afraid of what was happening in the nations, right? Like many of the French Jews that came in from France, they were recognizing that, hey, things are not good here. And so they made Aliyah. So, of course, we know that England, the United Kingdom, it's no longer the United Kingdom, really. But England is going to give up its Jews. It's only a matter of time. What we see happening in England right now, in London, and in the Yorkshire, but more so in London, where you have this Islamic explosion, is going to be a catalyst for many Jews to leave England. So that's coming, and it's going to happen here as well. I mean, it's going to happen here. There's this Mandami phenomenon right now where Jews are leaving Northeast, well, New York mostly, and a lot of them are coming down here to Florida. Well, it's only a matter of time before Florida becomes the same type of environment that will cause the Jews to go elsewhere. And where will they go? So, this situation that we're seeing in the nations right now, where there's this groundswell of anti-Israel hatred, and all of the and it's not just anti-Israel hatred, it's propagation of Islam.
Right.
It's jihad, and that's a powerful thing. So they're hating Israel, they're willing to persecute Jews, and they're trying to establish an Islamic caliphate. Doesn't look good for the nations. But in terms of Israel, their destiny is the land of Israel.
Right.
So we can see this in terms of Aliyah, and just sort of rejoice in that fact. But, historically, going back even into biblical times, there were always Jews who would abandon the tribes. There were always Jews who would abandon the tribes when things got difficult. The rabbis say that many Jews stayed back in Egypt. and refused to aliyah with the house of Israel, with Moses.
And yet there were Egyptians that in faith went up with Israel.
And you had Nubians and Egyptians that, different Cushite people that traveled with Israel. Of course, Moses took a Cushite wife. More than likely, she joined the tribes of Israel, right?
Sure.
So there were Cushite people that blended into Israel, but the rabbis say that many men, they have a number that's really staggering. 1/3 of Israel stayed behind. So if the Exodus comprised of about 2 million people, 1/3, that's a vast number, right?
Right.
So I don't know if that's true or not. That's what the rabbis say, but that's the same principle, right? There's conflict. I'm not going to stick around with Israel.
Right. Right.
All right. So even after that, in biblical times, with what we talked about Ruth. So Naomi and her husband, what was the husband's name?
Abimelech.
Abimelech, right?
Yeah.
Her husband and Abimelech, he has 2 sons who were Mahlon and
Sickly and wasting
sickly
away.
yeah. They left.
Yeah.
Things got difficult in Israel. They
Right.
hopped across the river and went to where the grass was greener. You have many examples of that, of course, with the diaspora, the different diasporas. You had the 722 diaspora, you had the 586 BC diaspora, you had the 70 AD diaspora. There were always Jews who would flee during difficult times. Yep. And that's the whole story of the diaspora, right?
Right.
So it kind of irks and hurts to see Jews, heading for the diaspora at this time, and that's a large number. But again, I think the consensus is most of them will return, which is very positive, right?
Yes.
So we as Christians, we have to take a biblical viewpoint on whatever we consider. Our view must be established in the Bible. So from the standpoint of the Bible, seeing this through eyes of faith,
Yes.
God is going to cause all of Israel to make Aliyah. That's represented a couple places in the Bible. We're going to look at some references. So God has an intent. He intends to cause all of Israel to return to the land of Israel. Again, if your perspective is one of faith, then you have to conclude that the prophet was right, that Ezekiel was right, that Moses was correct, that this general aliyah, where all the people of Israel will return, is going to happen. We may not at this time see the catalyst for it. What would be the impetus for something like that? We can only speculate. We can say anti-Semitism, anti-Israelism, Islamic hatred, Islamic caliphate. We can say those things. Nevertheless, it's going to happen. Whatever the catalyst is, it's going to happen. It's entirely possible that there can be a 3rd World War. I mean, are our governments behaving that way?
Yeah.
It's entirely possible that
Making
there can
light
be,
of nuclear exchanges.
Yeah. And so it's entirely possible that we can see a 3rd global conflict that will be different from the others, that would make life among the nations very difficult, and we can see an aliyah based on that. Nevertheless, God said he will bring them all back. So let's read about that in Ezekiel
36, starting in verse 6. Therefore, prophesy concerning the land of Israel, and say to the mountains and to the hills, to the ravines and to the valleys, thus says the Lord God, behold, I have spoken in my jealousy and in my wrath, because you have endured the insults of the nations. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, I have sworn that surely the nations which are around you will themselves endure their insults. But you, O mountains of Israel, you will put forth your branches and bear your fruit for my people Israel, for they will soon come. He said this a while ago, too. Mm-hmm. For behold, I am for you, and I will turn to you, and you shall be cultivated and sown. And I will multiply men on you, all the house of Israel, all of it, and the cities will be inhabited, and the waste places will be rebuilt. And I will multiply on you man and beast, and they will increase and be fruitful. And I will cause you to be inhabited as you were formerly, and will treat you better than at the first. Thus you will know that I am the Lord. Yes, I will cause men, my people Israel, to walk on you and possess you, so that you will become their inheritance and never again bereave them of children.
So what an incredibly positive prophetic word there from the prophet Ezekiel. So we are Bible believers. We believe that the Bible says it. We believe it. That settles it. So we fully expect that God will bring this to fruition. He will bring all. The prophet was very clear, all of them, and he says it twice. So God is emphatic. He will bring them all back. And the implications are, of course, one, all of them will return, and they will all return to the land of Israel. So the prophet is very vivid about that. Also in Deuteronomy, I have here Deuteronomy 30. I'm going to want, would you want to read, Jim, 1 to 5?
I've got it.
I have 15 here, but it's really 1 to 5, Deuteronomy chapter 30. So Deuteronomy, of course, we know that Moses spoke the book of Deuteronomy at Mount Nebo. It was a teaching, it was a sermon, a message that he brought at the foot of Mount Nebo before he went up to the mountain and died. He obeyed the word of God. He went up and he died. Now, he's speaking to Israel 40 years after Mount Sinai, moments or days before they enter into the land of Israel. So he's speaking here prophetically about something that had not happened to that point. So the essence of what we see here in Deuteronomy is that God knew that Israel would transgress against him. He knew it. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, he said, when you act with hostility against me, I will drive you out, right?
Right.
So God understood that was coming, but yet he had a plan for that return. He did clearly state that Israel, if they should transgress against him, there would be dire results, and the consequences would be intense. Israel went through that process, and so just as God was faithful about correction, punishment, he's also faithful about the ingathering, right? Mm-hmm. And so here we're seeing Moses, he's speaking to Israel concerning what will come after the correction, after the chastisement.
So it shall be when all these things have come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind in all nations where the Lord your God has banished you, and you return to the Lord your God and obey him with all your heart and soul, according to all that I commanded you today, you and your sons, then the Lord your God will restore you from captivity and have compassion on you, and will gather you again from all the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. If your outcasts are at the end of the earth, from there the Lord your God will gather you. From there he will bring you back. And the Lord your God will bring you into the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it, and he will prosper you and multiply you more than your fathers.
Yeah, so that's a faithful promise. And so we want to believe that we live in a time when we're seeing the fulfillment of this. God is causing Israel to return to the land. Is it an easy process? Is it clearly manifest that this is the time? There are questions, right? So you can question it. But from the standpoint of faith, we take the position that this is that time. It has to be.
Right.
When you take a broad view perspective of this, you say, wait a minute. While Israel has been established Israel has been established as a state, during that period, they've done nothing but fight off the enemy and survive.
Right.
Under incredible circumstances, they've prevailed against their enemies who came against them, who literally wanted to destroy them as a nation. Now, at the same time, we're seeing an uprising in the nations coming from the same element that's wanting to destroy Israel, the Islamic world, that's rising up in the nations. And what's it doing? Well, it's preparing to push the Jewish nation out of the nations, shuffle them around. But I don't think there are many places that they can go to because today's world is very small. It's 10 times smaller than the world was 50 years ago.
Right.
And so there are not many places that the Jewish people can run to hide from this beast, the system that's working in the world to bring destruction upon them.
Right.
So their only destiny, we would take as a matter of faith, would be the land of Israel. And the land of Israel is becoming more and more attractive to the Jewish nation. They're standing strong against their enemies. They're defeating their foes. Economically, they're set to prosper and to surge. So Israel is becoming more attractive to the Jewish nation, and we believe that ultimately they will all return, just as God said that they would.
Right.
Now, in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 5 and 6, made a wonderful, wonderful statement about this time, what God is planning to do. Isaiah chapter 43, I'm in 53. What am I doing? If you're there, maybe you can read that for us.
Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth.
So there are other prophecy that we find in the Bible that dovetails together with that corresponds to that. God is saying to the four corners of the earth. There are references about him speaking to the four winds of the earth.
Right.
Right? So he's going to bring them back from every corner. That's the important thing for us to see here. He intends to leave none of them among the nations, and they will all return. Now, what's different about what Isaiah prophesied there in Isaiah chapter 43 is God is commanding the nations to give them up, to don't hold them back.
Right.
So he's speaking to the nations. We say, well, what does that mean? Well, we can understand what principalities are. We know what principalities are. And he's speaking to the principalities of the nations.
Right.
He's speaking to the principality of the United States. He's speaking to the principality of Europe, because the vast majority of Jews that are still among the diaspora are here in this country, South America to some extent, not as much, and in Europe. Of course, there's a good portion in Australia and other places, but the vast majority of Jews that are in the diaspora, well, they live on the eastern seaboard of this country, from Maine to Miami. Mm-hmm. And so God is saying, he's saying to the eastern seaboard, or the spirit of this land, the principality, give them up.
Right.
Hold them back no longer. So what are the dynamics that we can expect that will cause this principality to release the people of Israel?
Yeah.
So since we're talking about principalities, demonic authority, demonic beings in that sense, let's just explore that for a moment. What would the principalities gain from causing the people of Israel to leave and to go back to the land, or to flee to the land of Israel? You see, Satan always has in his own existence, in his own mind, I guess I can say, he always has a plan that sort of points to his hope. His hope is that he would somehow have a kingdom. So he's always trying to elevate his purpose. So how does Israel return to the land of Israel, the Jewish people, make an aliyah fit into his grand scheme?
It baffles me because Satan's desire is not for God's kingdom to be established. He wants to obstruct that.
So I think the answer to that question we can find partly in the Revelation chapter 12. In Revelation chapter 12, the woman there is Israel. She gave birth to the male child who is
Right.
caught up to be with God
Okay.
and at the throne of God. But then the devil goes to make war with the woman, right?
Right.
The woman is Israel.
Israel.
And God prepares a place for her in the wilderness where he's unable to attain to that destruction that he wants for the woman. So literally, the diaspora served as a place where Israel would be able to escape the destruction of the evil one.
Right.
And if you look at the history of Israel in the diaspora, you can see that to a certain extent. So now we live in a time when all of Israel can return to the land of Israel. So the enemy, the evil one, the main principality of all the princes, I am convinced he's saying, well, I can get them all in one land.
I can get them all together. I
can have them
destroy
in one location.
Right.
And then I can bring about a unified destruction over all the people of Israel. That's how he's thinking. There's probably no question about that, or at least that's what he's wanting his followers to believe.
Right.
So the entire Islamic world would love to see Israel in one spot, all the Jewish nation in one spot, so that they can effect destruction. Hitler would have loved to have all of the Jews in Germany, right? For what
Right.
purpose? So he can eradicate them. It was a plan to eradicate. Eradication was what he was after. And so I think the principality, the evil principality of this world, Satan himself, is hoping to gather them up in one spot so that he can execute his eradication of the Jewish nation. So what is God going to do with that? So is it possible that God's leading the evil one on to believe that somehow he can attain to that?
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so God is planning to bring them back and restore them.
I mean, Satan is a spirit, and so he's a driving force.
He's a spirit, but he's also
not-
a person.
So he thinks like we do.
He's a person. He has a mind. He's a created being. According to the Bible, he's locked away somewhere, but his spirit roams the earth. So he thinks, he rationalizes, he thinks like a person, like a created being. And he is extremely clever, right? Too sharp for any of us.
Right.
But he's not more clever than the Lord himself, than God himself.
Right.
So the enemy can have plans within plans within plans, somehow working things out so that he can attain to his end, which is to become the king of the world. That's ultimately what he wants, right?
Right.
Now, God has a plan that he has implemented and instituted from the very beginning of the world's foundation, from the world's foundation. He put his plan in place. Everything is going exactly according to his plan. He can allow the evil one to believe that somehow, in the context of his own plan, God's own plan, the enemy can succeed.
Right.
And why would God do this? Well, to accomplish his purpose, you see. So the enemy is deceived and believing somehow that if I can deceive others, then my plan will actually work. That's the way his mind works. But what's going to happen is God's going to accomplish his purpose,
Right.
which is to bring all the people of Israel back to the land of Israel. The enemy working through, the flood of the nations, Islam, New World Order, whoever, Russia, China, whoever. The enemy will try to work through those elements to bring destruction upon the people of Israel, and that's what the Bible calls Armageddon. Right? That's a great conflict where God himself will fight for Israel.
Right.
God will send his son, and Yeshua will come, and he will make war against the nations. We've read Revelation chapter 19 many, many times. So
Right.
that's the scenario. The devil believes that somehow if I can just get them in one spot, that little piece of land, just corral all 14 million of them in that one spot, all it would take is a few nukes, and it's done. No more Israel. So that's the way he's thinking. Okay, God is saying, mess around and find out.
Yeah. Right.
God is saying, yeah, go for it. Because God has a solution, and his solution is Armageddon, sending his son to bring about an end to Satan's rule. What do we see in Revelation chapter 20? Satan is locked away. He's set aside for 1,000 years.
Right.
So God has a plan, and his plan supersedes the plan of the evil one.
Right.
And God's plan will succeed. Israel will return to the land of Israel, all of Israel, and they will prosper.
Right.
As Christians, we have a responsibility to know this, to recognize this, and to work to that end. Yes, we as Christians, we can work to that end. And we don't have to see this from the standpoint of our own rapturing out of here. Because we have a tendency to be a little bit selfish, a little bit self-centered about things. We have to get over that. And we have to see what's happening as our opportunity to function in the work that God is doing in the earth today, which is to bring about this great redemption.
Right.
Now, so yeah, we're seeing things that are amazing. We live in that time. We believe the awesome time of the ingathering. You know, God said that he would raise up an ensign. You know what that old English word is? Old Saxon word, I think it is. Ensign. You know what the word ensign is? It's found in Isaiah chapter 11.
Yes.
In the King James. In the New American Standard, it says standard.
Yes.
All right, so I like the word ensign because when you think of an ensign, you think of a battle, right?
Yes.
You think of an army that assembles and it puts up its ensign, its standard, its flag. So what we see here in Isaiah chapter 11 is that God is going to proceed things to a time when he will raise up an ensign for all the nations. I believe that ensign, that standard that he's raising up is that of Moshiach, the Messiah. I believe that the ensign is Moshiach. Now, I would love it to be a menorah,
Right.
a huge golden menorah on a flag with a white and blue background. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Nevertheless, he's going to raise up a standard, an ensign. The word here in the Hebrew is nes, a banner. So the banner is about his intent to bring about his kingdom in the earth. The banner represents victory, his victory. God will not raise up an ensign, a banner, a nes for failure. You see,
Right.
He raises up an ensign. Victory is guaranteed. In other words, he's not going to suffer defeat. So we see here in Isaiah chapter 11 a time when God will raise up an ensign. Let me read it, Jim.
Sure.
In that day, the nations will restore to the root of Jesse. Who is the root of Jesse? Well, we believe, we're pretty sure it's Jesus, who will stand as a nest, an ensign for the peoples, and his resting place will be glorious. It's referring to Zion.
My translation used the word signal.
Signal. What translation you got?
This is New American Standard, but 95.
95, okay.
Yeah.
All right, but signal is good. I say ensign, I say nest, banner.
Right.
And his resting place will be glorious. Then it will happen on that day that the Lord will again recover the second time with his hand the remnant of his people who will remain from Assyria, Egypt, Patros, Cush, Elam, Shinar, Hamat, and from the islands of the sea. And he will, let me see if I can see this right, and he will lift up a nest, again, a standard, an ensign,
It does say standard there.
for the nations, and assemble the banished ones of Israel, and will gather the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Again, you see that represented there again.
Yes.
We read that before, and it's represented that way in quite a few places in the Bible. So the point of reading this is that God has prepared a time to lift up his banner, his ensign. And that ensign, that battle flag will not hit the ground.
Right.
Will not touch dirt. It will remain. It will remain standing, and that nest, that banner, is the reality of his kingdom, and the one who will establish his kingdom, who of course is Yeshua, the Messiah. So, God will bring them back from the four corners of the earth. It says there in verse 11 that It will happen on that day that the Lord will again recover the second time with his hand the remnants of his people. So he's bringing them back a second time. It's referring to a second ingathering. The first ingathering, of course, we're dealing with Ezra, Zerubbabel,
Right.
following 586 BC. That was the first ingathering. All right. It was not a complete ingathering.
Right.
We know
No,
that
far from it. Right.
we know that Israel again was driven out in 70 AD and following 70 AD with the Bar Kokhba revolt and so on. But this is a second time. So when he brings them back the second time, it is then that he will raise up that victory flag and declare to the nations that he will bring them back from the four corners of the earth. And at this time, he's declaring to the nations, do not hold them back. Let them go.
Right.
Let my people go. So it's almost the same statement that God said to Pharaoh through Moses.
Right.
Let my people go. So we live in this awesome time when God is making that statement again to the nations. There's a Pharaoh, and he's not one man.
No.
He's a government, a world government. And God's going to speak to that Pharaoh and say, let my people go. So, the rise of Islam in the world and the boldness that we've seen of Islam in this country is part of the enemy's plan, right? Does Satan have a plan for Islam? Is he going to use Islam? Can we recognize the attributes of the evil one in Islam?
Yeah.
And Jesus said that he's a liar, the devil is.
Right.
And he's the father of all lies. There are no other religions in the world that utilizes lies for the sake of its propagation.
Right.
Islam does.
Right.
So ultimately, Islam is going to be a tool of the evil one, and he will attempt to use it well. God has a plan for it. There are many, many Muslims who are genuine in their hearts.
Yes.
Of course, I cannot paint with a broad brush. I grew up in a Muslim community. I've known many Muslims and befriended many, many Muslims. I received a lot of hatred from the leadership in the community. But many, many Muslims are in a place today where they're wanting more than what Islam offers. If Islam offers a regiment, a construct, who we are in Messiah, we know him beyond the construct. We know him by faith. And this is lacking in Islam. And I think this is why Islam is failing in many countries. Iran, I mean, the fastest growing church in the world is the Iranian church.
Wow.
So this is happening. And it's because people are wanting more than just a construct, more than just a rigid, regimented discipline. They want something that's real.
That's amazing that Iran is in that posture because Christianity would say that we have to send in evangelists.
And there are no evangelists there in the way
the Lord
in the
is
way we think of
intervening in their
evangelists.
lives, right?
There are things happening there that's not happening because there are people on the streets handing out tracts.
Right.
There's no one on the street handing out tracts. They're living tracts. There are people who are filled with the Spirit of God that are interacting with other people. So this is happening, and I genuinely feel for the Muslim people because they are trapped in a context that keeps them in bondage.
Yes.
Lots of fear, intimidation. And this is a tactic of Islam, right? So have I experienced fear? Have I experienced intimidation? Sure. I got that proverbial letter from them saying, this is an invitation. Here are some websites that will tell you how to become a Muslim. Again, you've been invited. I got that letter.
Yeah.
Am I afraid? No. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of Islam. So the reality is that the evil one will not prevent the people of Israel from returning to the land of Israel. He may think that he has an opportunity to eradicate them, but he's grossly mistaken. God is preparing to put an end to his kingdom. And, when you consider the evil one, a covering cherub, vastly, vastly more intelligent than any of us, he knows what's coming.
Yeah.
He knows what's coming.
He's got a big ego.
He knows what's coming. his ego will not allow him to deal with the reality of what's coming.
Right.
I think he functions, or he exists in a place where he believes that if I can convince enough people, if I can just look really convincing, then perhaps something can happen in my favor.
Right.
So, which of course is nonsense,
Along with his lies, he walks in willful self-deception.
Absolutely. That's the life of the evil one, the existence of the evil one. He doesn't have a life. He has an existence.
Right.
So in regards to what we're seeing in Israel today, we don't like what we're seeing. Israeli Jews leaving Israel to come to the nations. That's, from a certain perspective, counterproductive.
Right.
But at the same time, you had 55,000 Jews of the nations who made Aliyah based on faith, knowing the difficulty of the time that we're in, and yet they made Aliyah.
Right.
Again, the 125,000 that fled in fear, most of them will return.
Right.
Most of them will return, if not all of them. What did the prophet Ezekiel said? What did he say? He will bring them all back. All of them. So
he did use that word.
Twice. So.
Well, that's our program. If these questions raise questions in your thinking, please share them with us. The easiest way to do that is to email us at voice@buildupzion.org. Again, voice@buildupzion.org. And until next week, Shalom.